Google would prefer that we use string resources rather than hard-coded strings. We've looked at string resources already, but I want to show you some possibilities within the string resources. So I've created a project that just has a text view that can take multiple lines and a button, and the text view is named TV Demo. I didn't bother to name the button, but I gave it an on-click event of demo string resources. Let's take a look at that code. So I'm getting a reference to my text view, and all I'm doing is setting the text to get string, and I'm getting a string resource. In this case, new line demo. Let's take a look at that string resource. So the first example here is to demonstrate that you can use escaped characters. So I used escape quotes as well as a new line character as well as a tab. So those are all embedded in my string resource. And if I come over and I run it, I get the quotes around string, I get the new line character after contains, and I get the tab between escape character and. Let's go back to our strings. So I've added another string here called Unicode, and it allows me to display special characters using the Unicode symbols. It's the \U and then the 4-digit code for the character. And if you want to figure out what those characters are in Windows, you can use the char map, and I can find a character that I want. We're going to use the copyright symbol as our first one, and notice down here it shows you what that Unicode representation is. So 00A9. So I have that here as the copyright symbol. The 215E is the 7/8 fraction. The 2211 is the Greek letter sigma, uppercase sigma. The 266B is musical quarter notes, a pair of them. So let me go over to my main activity. Now that I've added the string in, I'm going to change new line demo to Unicode, and I need to restart my project because I've made changes to the strings resources, and there then are the Unicode characters, the copyright, the 7/8, the sigma, and the musical notes. I'm going to stop, and let's add another string in. We can also include placeholders to be replaced with text we want to pass to our string. I created a string called sale, and it simply is farmer. We'll have a name here, sold, a value, what the farmer sold today for, and then this is going to be a price of 2 decimal places. So let's look at each of those placeholders. Each one has a percent and a number, and that's going to be the number of the parameter. So this is going to be the first parameter, the second parameter, the third parameter, and the fourth parameter. The $ in front of that is a literal character that will be printed with our price. Then after that parameter designation comes the format that's going to be passed. So a $S is a string. A $D is an integer. It's considered a decimal integer, and decimals can be a little confusing here. We're talking base 10 integer. That's the D. Another string. And then this one, $.2f, is a floating point with 2 decimals, 0.2. There are others. You can use %T for time or date, a %B for Boolean, a %C for char, and a %X for a hexadecimal value. And I suppose there's probably others out there beyond that, but those are the ones you primarily end up using. Let's go into our code. And I'm just going to comment out my line here, and I'm going to paste in some code that I wrote previously. I created 4 constants, farmer being Pat, num equals 6, items is cows, and price equals 619.27. I want to create a string in my TV demo text view of those values within the string. And of course, I can use concatenation, farmer plus little string of sold plus num converted to string plus a space plus the items plus a string of today for $sign plus the price.to string. And that would actually work. I lost a curly brackets. Let me add that in. I just noticed I got a little error on this one down here. So if I test this, we'd see that this works. And I get Farmer Pat sold 6 cows today for $619.27. While that works, you'll notice this is all highlighted in yellow here. And if I point to it, we get a do not concatenate text displayed with set text, use resource string with placeholders. So they want me again to use a resource string, but how do I add these values in? Well, we did that with our, going back to our string here, we created the placeholders for the first item, the second item, the third item, and the fourth item. And so now I'm going to change my code. I'm going to comment out this line of code, and we're going to replace it with tvdemo.setText get string r.string sale. That was my resource string. I'm going to pass it, comma delimited, my 4 values: farmer, num, items, and price. So now let's refresh and let's test it. And so I'm getting the same things I did before, but I'm not doing concatenation. Instead, I'm using the resource string as Google would prefer us to do. I'm going to conclude. Let's go back to our strings again. I've added another string. This one's called HTML demo. And I want to show you can actually use HTML tags to format the text string. So I'm using the bold tags and the italicized tags, and I'm also using the font tag where I'm going to change the color of the text, the FG color. And in this case, FF0000 is going to be red. And then also did one here that's going to be blue. And of course we have concluding tags for the fonts as well as the bold and italicized. Let me go over to my main activity. And so I added in a line of code here of getString r.string.html demo. Now we're going to see this actually doesn't work, and I'll show you what you need to do to fix it. So I have my project running over here, and I'm going to choose demo. I don't get the formatting. Nothing's bolding, nothing's italicized, and there's no color changes. The trick here to use the HTML code, rather than get string, we have to use get text. I'm going to make that little change. I'm going to come back over and refresh. And let's try it again. And there we go. We get the bolding, we get the italicizing, and we get the combination of bold, italicized, and the font color changes, all coming from our string resource. Let me conclude, and we'll add another string. Well, cool. We've included parameters so we can place dynamic values inside of our resource string. We've also incorporated some HTML text to make it look really cool. I want to combine those two. I want to have a placeholder that uses HTML tags. And this is where I ran into some problems. Because the get text that we used for showing our HTML text does not accept the placeholders that the get string does, and the get string method does not accept the HTML code. How do we get around that? So I had to do a lot of Google searching and a lot of playing around, and I found a solution. So let me just present that to you. So in the string, I incorporated the CData tag that allows us to analyze the HTML tag at a little bit deeper level and include some other things. That has to be included in your string if you want to have placeholders with the HTML code. And they include 2 square brackets and a greater than symbol. Let's go over to the code. So once again, I'm going to comment out my last line where we're displaying our text. So I added a comment here on the problem with the getString getText and the solution that I found. I found the solution posted at this website by Michael Wegner and modified a little bit of what he did. But here was the solution. I create a variable for the parameter that I want to display, and I just put very cool. Let's go back and look at that string real quickly. So in the string, it just says this string contains a formatted, and then there's a placeholder here, and then we did the HTML tag, and then the word placeholder. Back to our activity file. The trick is I've got to take that string and I have to encode it with HTML. So there's a text utility you can import, and it's .html encode, and then the text, and I put that into a new variable called encoded phrase. Then we're going to create a string called my formatted text. We're going to use the get string to get the string resource and pass it the HTML encoded parameter of encoded phrase. Then we're going to take that value and we're going to create an HTML string from it that goes into spanned text as a value, and it is of type spanned. And then I can display the spanned text in my text view. Now the one thing that didn't work, and you'll see this when I run this, is we had a font color change in the resource, and that is ignored. So let's once again come over to our emulator. I'm going to run this again. And there is my formatted string with my substitute parameter and still retaining the bold formatting that was in the resource string. So now the question is, I wanted this to be highlighted in yellow. That was stripped out. How could I do that? That was the second issue I had to do some searching on. So once again, I'm going to comment out my TV demo, paste in some more code, and so here's a website where I found how to highlight text inside a text view. So my workaround simply was I created a string of that spanned text as a spannable string. So another data type here that I imported in. I wanted to find where my text of very cool begins, so I used index of to find the start index, and then set span of str variable to the background color span of color.yellow, my start value, and then the ending value, which is the start index plus the count of the length of my phrase, very cool, and then display that in the text. So once again, let me refresh and test. And there then is using set span to highlight my parameter in yellow. I'm going to paste some more information. So there's just some useful comments that I found as I was doing my search. You can create a spannable string builder and then change the foreground color as well as the background color. But you can also change the text size. You want something to be larger, you can do set span and then relative size span. And if you want to change the font, that gets a little more complicated. You need to embed your font as an asset, or probably as a raw value. And then here's a website that will walk you through of how to change that typeface. That gets a little more complicated. So if that becomes a need, there's a reference for you. So those are just some tricks for working with string resources and some added capabilities to make your projects look even better. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the Android App Development Cohort playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos that I create, you can click my picture up in the top right and subscribe to the channel.